it's Amanda, and today I'll be reviewing Chris Colfer's The Land of Stories series. The first book, The Wishing Spell, follows twins Alex and Connor, whose father has recently died and whose mother is struggling to make ends meet. She's had to sell their old house and she's working really long hours. This means she's had to work on the twins' birthday. So their grandmother comes over and she brings them a present. This present is an old fairy tale book that has been passed down through the family. Fairy tales are really important to Alex and Connor because that's one of their connections to their father. He used to tell them fairy tales when they were kids, including some that no one else seems to have heard of. He had a story for every situation and could always make them feel better with one of these stories. However, the fairy tale book is not just a book of fairy tales, it is a portal to the fairy tale world. When Alex and Connor fall through the book and into the fairy tale world, they need to go on a magical scavenger hunt in order to find the items to create the wishing spell that will send them home. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and you should really read this. As I have said many times in my videos, the characters are one of the things that really held this book up. He took classic fairy tale characters which don't have that much depth to them and really turned them into full rounded characters, and I really enjoyed meeting them. Admittedly, some of the characters were better rounded than others. While we do meet Cinderella, I don't really learn that much more about her than I knew already. However, I really liked his characterization of Goldilocks and Red Riding Hood. I found it really enjoyable to see how these characters that he's created fit into the fairy tales that we all know and love. If you haven't read this book, please stop the video here, go pick it up and then come back, because the rest of this video may contain some spoilers. One of the things I really loved about this book was that the scavenger hunt that they were sent upon was actually tricky. I did not work out some of them until after the story was told. I found that Snow White's jewels I didn't pick up on, and the kids worked it out really quickly, and I had no idea about the crown. I did work out some of them faster than the kids, which does make me happy because they're like 10 years younger than me, and it was good that I was doing better than them. But it was very cleverly written. The only thing I would have liked was if some of these items weren't told so quickly. I would have liked it if they had to work it out a little bit more like they did with some of them. I really loved the ending with Snow White's evil stepmother. I thought this was really cleverly done because it really adds context to the story, and that's one of the real strengths of Chris Colfer's writing. While it was nice to meet some of these fairy tale heroes, I think Chris Colfer's real strength is in writing his villains. His villains are amazing because it takes real skill and a great storyteller to actually make you feel sympathetic for the bad guy in the story, and with the evil queen, he definitely did that for me. While I did work out what was happening, it was more in a way of he made me think of the idea as if it was something that I could come up with and then write again, and when I found out that he had used it, I was a little bit disappointed because I was really excited about, oh wow, that would be a really good twist on it, and he beat me to it. It was really good, and I really enjoyed it. The second book is The Enchantress Returns. This book starts up about a year after the events of the wishing spell, and Alex and Connor have not been back to the fairy tale world since. While Connor is flourishing after his journey into the fairy tale world, doing really well at school and discovering what he wants to be, Alex is feeling disconnected from the real world. She isn't happy. She just doesn't feel as at home and as if she belongs in the real world anymore. Their grandmother has been mysteriously absent, but other than that, everything's rather boring and dull. However, in the fairy tale world, things aren't going quite so smoothly. The evil enchantress that was known for putting Sleeping Beauty under the sleeping spell is on the loose and trying to take over the world. Alex and Connor have no idea that this is happening until one day their mother is kidnapped and their grandmother all of a sudden appears again and is doing whatever she can to make sure they're safe. However, Alex and Connor just want to rescue their mum, so they're trying to get back into the fairy tale world. This is a really good book, and I rated it 5 out of 5 stars, just like the first one. However, it was a bit slow in the beginning because for me the real excitement is when they're in the fairy tale world, and it took about a third of the book before they actually got there, which was a shame, but you still did have things happening, so it wasn't quite so bad. What I really enjoyed was, while the wishing spell was telling you about what happened after the fairy tales, this one gives you a bit more of a timeline into the whole history of the fairy tale world, and so you got to see how other stories fit into this huge kingdom and how everyone was connected, which I thought was really interesting and one of my favourite parts about this book. You also got to meet some new characters, which I enjoyed meeting. you got to meet Mother Goose, and I thought his idea about who she should be was brilliant, and just like in the other book, he created a really, really good villain. So if you haven't read this book, go away and then come back after you've read it and we can discuss what happens in a little bit more detail. Now that everyone who's not read this book has gone, I can finally say what I've been like holding inside ever since I read this. And that is, he better bloody make another book. The ending was just heartbreaking, and I thought it would be the last book, which would have been really sad, but still a really nice way to tie all the ends up, until Connor said something along the lines of, I knew it wouldn't be the last time I saw my sister, or something along those lines. And then I was like, oh, there's going to be another one, and I really hope there is. This is one of my favourite children's series, even though I didn't start reading it until I was well into my teens. I have no nostalgic value to at all, but he captures the fairy tales so well, and I loved his characterization. Again, what I really liked about this book was the villains. Rumpelstiltskin was so wonderfully done, and I really felt for him. I understood where he was coming from, and I really felt sympathy for where he ended up. As for the evil enchantress, she was vile, she was wicked, and she was just nuts. But I understood what made her get that way. I felt some sympathy for her, particularly when she was talking about the men that had done her wrong, and I understood what made her tick. And that was what's really impressive in a children's book. A lot of the time when I read a children's book, the evil guy is the guy with the evil mustache and the cape and maybe a top hat, or something along those lines. They're notably evil, and they're just evil for the sake of being evil. What I liked about this was, while I knew she was evil, I felt sorry for her. I understood how she got that way, and she was a real, proper character. She wasn't just the dark, shadowy figure that you often see in fairy tales. So I was really, really impressed, and I loved seeing the history. I thought the introduction of Beauty and the Beast was really clever, and I'm loving getting this overview of how the history fits into what's happening in today's world, because I like the idea that fairy tales aren't just still living in the first generation, which was what was suggested a lot of the time in the first book. So I'm very, very impressed. As I said, 5 out of 5 stars, and I'm so glad that I read this book, and he better write another one. Okay guys, that's it from me, and I'll see you next time with a new video. Bye!